This is the lecture for the super intelligent will, motivation, and instrumental rationality in advanced artificial agents by Nick Bostrom. So the first topic is the topic of this article, superintelligences, and sort of what we're talking about in the course. So this is a course on AI ethics, and some people, for instance, this guy Nick Bostrom, they think that worrying about like super intelligent AI and what that AI might do and how it might act and how we might control it or not control it is sort of like very, very important for AI ethics. It's like the main topic in AI ethics. And you'll notice if you look at the sort of what we're reading at the beginning of the course and what we have, the topics we have for voting on through the rest of the course, we don't have anything about like super intelligent AI or anything except for this article. And I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is that I wanted the course to be a bit more practical, like the super intelligent AI stuff is sort of speculation about the future. There's disagreement about how far in the future it is. The people who are more worried about super intelligent AI tend to think it's like relatively soon in the future, and then everybody else thinks, well, it's either never going to happen or it's going to happen so far in the future that we can't really say anything useful about what we should think about it because we can't predict that far in the future, and so we can't make sort of informed uh, we can't say anything informed about that far in the future. So that's one reason why we're not talking a lot about this stuff. It's not maybe as practical as the other topics, and well, I don't know. I think that's the main reason. I don't know if people really want to talk about super intelligent AI. Let me know, and we can maybe add it to the list of topics to vote on. But as of now, the course is much more sort of practically focused, and this is the only super intelligent AI reading that we have. Next, this the some of the stuff he talks about in the article, it's it's straightforward if you know what he's talking about, but it might be tough if you've never encountered this sort of thing. He talks about everything in the abstract, and he doesn't give examples of anything. Uh, I think one reason he's doing this is that these are sort of common things that you may come across in philosophy, and so you already know what he's talking about. But if you haven't come across this before, the fact that he doesn't give any examples may just make things much more confusing than they need to be. So on 77 to 78, he starts talking about situations in which an agent may intentionally change its own final goals. And so this part of the lecture is just going to give some examples of the stuff he's talking about. You may find it helpful to pause the lecture, read the article, or at least read the article up through page 78, and then come back. Or maybe you can watch the lecture first and then read the article. I don't know. It's up to you. You could try both. You could watch the lecture, read the article, watch the lecture again. But again, I'm just going to give some examples to help fill things out if it's not obvious to you what he's talking about just from the concepts. So first, he brings up this idea of social signaling. So when others can perceive an agent's goals and use that information to infer instrumentally relevant dispositions or other correlated attributes, it can be in the agent's interest to modify its goals to make whatever desired impression. For example, so he says, like, here's an example, but it's not really an example. An agent might miss out on beneficial deals if potential partners cannot trust it to fulfill its side of the bargain. In order to make credible commitments, an agent might therefore wish to adopt as a final goal the honoring of its earlier commitments, and to allow others to verify that it has indeed adopted this goal. Agents that could flexibly and transparently modify their own goals could use this ability to enforce deals among one another. So what would an example of this be? So let's say you're going into business and you want to start a business and you're looking for business partners, and there's a potential business partner who you might work with, but they're they're very greedy. Like their only goal is to make as much money as possible, and they'll do anything in order to make as much money as possible, including screw over their business partners or anything like that. So if you know that somebody is like this, you might be a little wary of starting a business with them. I mean, they might be a very good business partner, like they might know all sorts of stuff about business and so on. But you're taking a risk. They'll, as soon as it's profitable for them, they'll turn on you and cheat you or do anything. And so if people are good at reading each other. Like people are good at finding out what other people are like. Maybe people have reputations. You can sort of tell what somebody's like by talking with them. If we're in a community where people are good at this sort of thing, that greedy person might not, get chosen as anybody's business partner. People might stay away from them because they realize, oh, this person is just going to cheat me out of money or whatever. And so that greedy person, their goal is to make as much money as possible. And yet their goal is being frustrated because, the fact that they have this goal signals to other people that they're not as trustworthy. And so you can imagine if you're this greedy person, you might think, well, even by my own lights, I'm not doing very well. I'm not making as much money as I could be. If I were less greedy, if I didn't put money above everything, I'd actually make more money. So it's in my interest to sort of change what I want the most. If what I want the most is, to be a good business person, where that doesn't mean just making as much money as possible, but also being, trustworthy and reliable and stuff. If I could somehow come to want that more than making money, I would make more money. So that might be a situation where this person alters their final goal. Their final goal used to be make as much money as possible, but now their final goal might be, be the best, most honest business person possible. And if they alter their final goal like this, then, people will choose them to be their business partner and they'll be a part of a lot of flourishing businesses and they'll make a lot of money or whatever. So that could be a case where, it makes sense to alter your final goal. Because other people can sort of tell what you're doing, what you're going after. And if other people can tell, then certain final goals might make you sort of unattractive to them in various ways, or might have negative results for you in various ways. So that's one example. You can think of many, many other examples where you might want to alter your final goal because of the social signaling value, because of what it signals to other people who can figure out what goals you have, and they say, oh, if somebody has those goals, I don't want to associate with them. So another thing he says is social preferences. Others may also have preferences about an agent's goal. The agent could then have a reason to modify its goals, either to satisfy or to frustrate those preferences. So, let's say that people only want to be friends with people who want to climb Mount Everest or something. And so if you want to have friends, you had better want to climb Mount Everest. People are only going to want to be your friend if you want to climb Mount Everest. So if that's the case, then you might sort of go from not wanting to climb Mount Everest to wanting to climb Mount Everest. You would change your final goals so that people will now be your friend. So if people have preferences about what sort of goals you should have, that might be a reason to change the goals that you have. Preferences concerning own goal content. An agent might have some final goal concerned with the agent's own goal content, right? Example, the agent might have a final goal to become the type of agent that's motivated by certain values, such as compassion. So the thought is, among the final goals you have, one of your goals might be, I only want to have goals that will benefit other people. Like I want to be an altruistic person, and I don't want to want anything that isn't ultimately altruistic. So you have that final goal, then you have some other final goals, and you're looking at your other final goals, and one of them is like a selfish one. It doesn't help other people. But because you have this previous final goal, which is I only want altruistic final goals, you would say, oh, I should get rid of that selfish final goal. I don't want that final goal. I don't want to want selfish stuff. And so that could be a reason for changing your final goals and getting rid of that selfish one. So those are just some examples. Like I said, it may have already been clear to you what he was saying when you read this, or when you read this, it may be clear to you, but sometimes it can help to have some examples. Certainly one thing you can do is come up with more examples. So I just gave you 3, but you can come up with dozens of examples for each of these. Maybe you can put them in perusal or something, come up with 1 or more examples for each of these and comment on perusal, and that might help other people understand what's going on. So I encourage you to do that sort of thing, not just for these, but really anytime. I think the perusal document on Canvas says this, but if you can come up with examples of things that the author explains without examples, or even come up with additional examples that the author explains with examples, those are always useful things to put on perusal. So next, also on page 78, in footnote 10, well, even before footnote 10, he talks about the idea of trashing that part of your utility function, or having a utility function. And he talks about another type of factor that might make an evidential decision theorist undertake various actions, including changing its final goals, is the evidential import of deciding to do so. And then he goes on to talk about what that works. So I think from this point forward, the lecture is optional. This is just going to be some potentially interesting stuff, just some background on what expected utility theory is and what evidential decision theory is. And you don't really need this for the course. And then the stuff after this in the lecture you also don't need, so you can stop watching now. But I think first, starting with expected utility theory. So expected utility theory is basically a way of modeling decision making, where the idea is you have this notion of utility, and utility is kind of whatever it is that you're trying to get. And so you have agents making decisions, and the agents want to maximize their utility. They want to get as much utility as possible. What is utility? I mean, it doesn't matter. All that matters is whatever it is, you want to get more of it. And then the thought is that how is the agent going to decide what to do? Well, it's going to sort of look at all of its choices at each moment, and it's going to calculate for each choice how much utility it's likely to get if it makes that choice. And then it's going to pick the choice with the highest expected utility, which is basically the highest amount of utility that it's going to produce multiplied by the probability that it's going to get you that utility. So let's say you have two choices. You could go left or you could go right. If you go left, there's a 50% chance that you get 100 utility and a 50% chance you get 0 utility. If you go right, there's a 50% chance you get 100 utility and a 50% chance you get minus 100 utility. And so you look at the sort of expected utility of each of those, and the expected utility of going left is basically 50. Like, since you have a 50-50 chance to get 100, it's 100 multiplied by 0.5, it's 50. And if you go right, the expected utility is 0. You have a 50-50 chance of getting 100 or losing 100. I mean, there's other ways of calculating expected utility, but like broadly, that's a way of doing it. And so you'd go left. You have a higher expected utility if you go left. And so the thought is that this is a way of sort of understanding how we can model how things act. We sort of look at the choices that things make. So maybe look at the choices people make and sort of proceed under the assumption that what people are doing is trying to maximize utility. And so sort of by looking at the choices someone makes, we can say, oh, clearly they did this because it had sort of the highest expected utility or something. Now, of course, people don't always behave as expected utility maximizers. This is just a sort of modeling system for understanding like choice very broadly, and people don't always sort of act rationally and do whatever has the highest expected utility or whatever, if in fact that's rational. But this is just sort of a common way of understanding choice in a lot of the social scientists or a lot of the social sciences. So in economics or whatever, you'll see like rational choice theory or expected utility theory being used to model how agents are expected to act or expected to think about acting. And it's quite common in philosophy too. So that's what he's referring to when he talks about the agent's utility function. So the agent's utility function is just the thing that calculates for them the expected utility of each of the options available to them. Now, I said earlier there's like a bunch of ways of calculating expected utility, and one of the ways of calculating is known as evidential decision theory. And so evidential decision theory says the way you should act is basically you should act in a way that sort of gives you you should want to act so that the evidence you have is evidence for sort of the highest expected utility outcomes. And what exactly does that mean? Well, imagine you have the left and right choices, and the left has a higher expected utility. And the reason you think going left will give you this utility and going right will give you this utility is that you've done a lot of research. You have a bunch of evidence about what will happen if you go left and what will happen if you go right. And so evidential decision theory says, look at all your evidence and make a decision based on that. And that seems pretty reasonable. The only reason it's relevant is that there's actually weird cases where looking at the evidence that you have and making a decision based on that can actually give you a different result than a different kind of decision theory known as causal decision theory. So causal decision theory says you don't act based on like all the evidence that you have, rather act based on work out sort of how the world works, so to speak, like work out relations of cause and effect, and sort of based on those relations of cause and effect, you should act so that sort of knowing how things work, you'll get the highest expected utility or whatever. So in the left and right choices, maybe you have a theory about why going left will generate this much utility, and a theory about why going right will generate that much utility. And so based on the theory about like causation and stuff like that, you would choose left rather than right. And so in 99% of cases, evidential and causal decision theory just say to do the same thing, because of course, when you're coming up with a theory about how the world works, you're doing that based on evidence. And of course, you don't ignore evidence when you make your theory. In fact, you use evidence to make your theory. So 99% of the time, they give you exactly the same answers for things. So in real life, they're effectively the same decision theory. There's some weird cases. The most famous case is called Newcomb's box. Let me spell that for you. So this is sort of like a famous philosophical thing, I don't know, like puzzle, where evidential and causal decision theory give you different answers. And so I'm not going to bother explaining Newcomb's, well, sure, well, yeah, Newcomb's box, you walk into a room, there's two boxes, one you can see into, one you can't. The one you can see into has $1,000. The one you cannot see into, you don't know what's in there. And they tell you, look, we've got a really advanced AI, extremely hyper advanced AI, much better than anything anybody's ever seen. The AI predicts people's actions based on its observations of them. It's been observing you for many years now. This AI has basically never been wrong. It's predicted thousands and thousands of things that thousands and thousands of people will do, and 99.9999% of the time it's like right on the money. So like clearly a really good AI. And the AI has, you have a choice. You can take both boxes, or you can take just the closed box, the one that you don't know what's inside. The AI yesterday made a prediction about which box you're going to take. Are you going to take both, or are you going to take one? And here are the two options. If the AI predicted you're going to take both boxes, then the closed box that you can't see inside, that one's empty. If the AI made that prediction, then we didn't put anything inside the closed box. So you take both boxes and you'll get the $1,000 in the open box and $0 from the closed box. But if yesterday, when the AI made its prediction, it predicted that you would only take the closed box, you would leave the $1,000 and just take the closed box, then we put $1 million in the closed box. So that was yesterday. The box has been sealed since then. We're not going to tell you what the AI predicted, but now it's now you choose. Do you want both boxes or one box? So if you're a causal decision theorist, you would say, oh, well, causally speaking, the money was placed in the box yesterday. So I know at this point my choice can't affect how much money is in the box. The AI already made its prediction yesterday. And so my choice is causally inefficacious. My choice is causally unlinked to the money. And so causally speaking, the expected utility suggests I should take both boxes, because either there's like $1 million in the closed box, or there's $0 in the closed box. Whatever it is, it's too late for me to causally influence that. I have no influence over that right now when I'm choosing boxes. So I'll take the closed box, of course, but I might as well take the open box too, because there's $1,000 in that. So either I get 1 million plus 1,000, or I get 1,000. Either way, I'm taking both boxes. That's what the causal decision theorist says. The evidential theorist says, well, look, I'm supposed to make my decision based on the evidence, and the AI is right 99.999% of the time. And so if I choose only the closed box, this is going to be very good evidence for there being $1 million in the closed box. Because look, the AI is basically always right. And so if the AI yesterday predicted that I pick only the closed box, then my picking the closed box right now is very good evidence for there being lots of money in there. If I take both boxes, there's nothing in the closed box. And so that'll be good evidence for there being, if I take both boxes, probably there's nothing in the closed box because probably the AI predicted yesterday that there's two. And so in this case, expected utility and causal utility, or sorry, evidential decision theory and causal decision theory, which are both expected utility theories, they differ about how many boxes to take. And this is a really interesting puzzle because philosophers are basically split half and half. Some of them say, of course, take both boxes. And some of them say, no, of course, take only the closed box. So I don't know. What do you think? Next topic. I don't know. This article, probably I maybe should have done this before this one because maybe it's helpful for everybody to hear and some people have stopped listening. But I don't know. So there's just some stuff in the article that he doesn't really explain. So like the first sentence or the second sentence, the personality difference between Hannah Arendt and Benny Hill might seem vast to us, blah, blah, and he never explains who Hannah Arendt and Benny Hill are. The other example in the lecture, he talks about light cones, and he never explains what a light cone is. You can just basically ignore that stuff or just really quickly Google it. I don't know. There's select references and stuff, and they're not very important. But don't let those trip you up when you're reading. And finally, I don't know, if you're interested in superintelligent AI, probably there's like all sorts of books written about it and stuff, but just like one relatively recent book on the topic is by William Gibson, and it's called Agency, published in 2020. And it's like a novel, not a philosophy book or anything like that. But if you're interested in the topic, this is not just about superintelligent AI, but also about like specifically what Bostrom is talking about, which is like, what is it that superintelligent AI would want to do, and what would it be for sort of us to interact with superintelligent AI and things like that. So I don't know, you may check out the book.